Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Show. I'm Stu Whiffin, joining me always, Blake. You're laughing already, aren't you?
Yeah, I never thought people were used to seeing me on TV, not you on
mate.
TV. So
that's it. Like I've this podcast is paying dividends, mate. I've made it finally on the TV. I mean, the reason if you're listening to this, you're just going to get the usual experience. If you're watching this, you're going to get a very different experience. And it was touch and go that this was even going to happen today because I've been moving house. We had a test run because I've got no Wi-Fi, no TV, so I've not watched the fights in the way that I normally watch them. So yesterday, I'm currently sitting. You can't see this, so I've blurred the background. I'm currently sitting in my garage, nicking my neighbour's Wi-Fi because I've got no internet. We done a test run yesterday, and my setup was the laptop on an ironing board. It looked shocking.
high tech.
Don't say we don't give you the best on the MMA Fan Show. But yeah, look, whatever happens is we've made it here today to discuss a lot of the action that went down at UFC 302. Now, one of the things before, we should also mention the sponsors, but just quickly, I've not really seen much of the card because I've got no Virgin or Sky's arriving Tuesday. So as of next week, we're back to normal. But so I've had to sort of try to
Sounded
log in.
like some kind of Transylvanian villain there. I've got no Virgin. Stu in the towers wearing a cape.
That's why I blurred my background. You can't see what's going on here. Right, so I forgot where I was going with this now. What was we talking about?
You haven't been able to watch
Yes,
the card properly, so you've been digging out like YouTube videos or whatever it is you can find. I have seen it.
Excellent.
So rest assured we will be talking about it to some detail, the level of detail we normally get on this show at least anyway. So you haven't really seen a huge amount. Have you seen clips, highlights, something?
Yes. So TNT uploaded onto YouTube highlights of Strickland and highlights of Dustin's fight. So I think I can talk pretty good about that.
Yeah, that's the most thing. I mean, obviously it's best to watch it full, but I mean, I don't think overall this was the best card in the world. I felt like at times it was a little bit of a slog to get through. It was not. And in the preview show, we were talking about the fact that this was quite a top heavy card. It was co-main and main. And other than that, it was a bit. Some fighters are interesting, some fighters are good, but it was by no means a card with loads and loads of fights on it that we were thinking would have implications to a division or was super exciting fights or anything like that. And I think the card sort of lived up to that, what we assumed it would be. And I think particularly the way the co-main went, I think damaged the card quite a lot. Because I thought the main was actually pretty captivating at times. But I think overall the card was, I think if people were honest with it, was a little bit of a slog.
Right.
But yeah, go on. What do you want to talk about first?
I want to talk about our sponsors. That's what I thought we should talk about. So we've got two sponsors on the MMA Fan Show, and we're going to start with our longest serving sponsor, which is Ferocious Fightwear. They do rash guards, shorts, gum shields, wraps, everything you need to get yourself in the gym and start training. So why don't you head over to ferociousfightwear.com, and while you're over there, pop in the discount code MMA Fan Show 15. That's 15. Look at you. You were waiting for me to get that wrong.
I was about to jump in because I was like, what's he going to say?
MMA
Fan Show. 85%. No, God, no. No. Stu.
You can save 85%. They're giving it away over there. Head over to Ferocious Fightwear. And if you're not looking to buy anything or you don't train, You can really help us out by just going over to their socials and giving them a follow and just show a little bit of online support to them, because they're a growing company, and the lad that runs it's top gent. So go and show some love over there. And for the last couple of weeks,
just to clarify, that is MMA Fan Show 15. Before anyone takes that joke about 85% seriously, it's 15.
15. Yeah, and as well as that, we have a newish sponsor, and they are called Fat Candy, and they do freeze-dried sweets. It was brought to my attention, these freeze-dried sweets, by my children. They're all over them. They also have no teeth left now, because it is a absolutely insane sugar hit, but it is absolutely delightful. It's all of your favourite sweets, so all them ones sort of growing up, your Cola Cubes, your Skittles, all of them nice little sweetie treats, but then they freeze dry them and they sort of expand and become this really bizarre sort of texture. And you've got to try it. Go online. And do you know, I've had some really nice feedback already. We've had quite a lot of the listeners have mentioned. Someone messaged me yesterday, so I'm just waiting for my Fat Candy stuff. I've been told it's arriving today. So it's good that people are going to go and support our sponsors. But yeah, go and treat yourself to a pot. And if you're flagging and you need a little sugary hit, then head over to Fat Candy. And while you're over there, you can save yourself some money, because like Ferocious Fightwear, they have given us a discount code. Blake, do you want to tell us what the discount code is today?
Sweet MMA.
Oh,
I'm not doing your stupid, cross-eyed weirdness that you do. It's Sweet MMA, SWEET MMA. And and they are delicious. Like, honestly, I can see me getting addicted to the Skittles. The freeze-dried Skittles are absolutely delicious.
Absolutely.
So, check those out. Get those as a little treat for you, for the kids, whoever you want. And with summer coming around the corner, who doesn't want a freeze-dried sweet?
Absolutely.
Are we going to get summer this year? I don't know. It's sort of summery right now where I am. But I feel like it's
a bit chilly in the garage.
It's been a slog. The half-term holiday has been a slog with the kids. We went down to Margate, and it was an awful decision. We were just getting battered by the wind, the rain, everything. It was terrible.
Oh, can you imagine all them hipster moustaches? They must have been getting blown all over the place in Margate.
Mate, people were flying off all over the place by their beards. It was just... beard parachuting was a big thing that day.
About 2 years ago, I think it was during lockdown, there was some like ridiculously high winds. But obviously we're in the UK, so they're never generally that ferocious. But my mum messaged me going, just to let you know, if you're taking the dog out today, keep him on a lead, because I've been hearing that dogs have been blown away. In all seriousness, the visions of me just like my dog, like a kite, just being like, I think it's going to be all right, Mum. Oh, fantastic! Wow. Right, well, look, should we start?
You got to get rid of that TV now. Surely the TV's got to go. It's going to be. We're going to be doing clips, and people will be like, "What is happening on the socials?" Like people that haven't even watched the show, you're like, "We've got to get rid of that TV thing."
Choose virtual background.
But yeah, so what we're doing, we're starting with Islam versus Dustin. There we go. There you are. I'm assuming Islam versus Dustin is what we're starting with. So obviously you've just seen the highlights. I watched the whole thing. How did you feel Dustin did? I actually felt Dustin did better than I expected him to, but regardless of that, I still gave every single round up until the finish. Other than round 4, I think maybe I gave to Poirier, but it was close. But I think there's a world in which you could get every single round to Islam Makhachev, and yet still we come out of it going, "Oh, didn't Dustin do well?" So how do you feel about it from just seeing the highlights, first of all?
Right. So look, everybody that listens to this show knows that I'm a massive Poirier fan, and I'd love to have seen him do what felt like the impossible last night, beating the pound-for-pound champ. And like you, I thought he put in a really decent performance in that 4th round. Like, some of them body shots he was throwing was fantastic. Like, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Makhachev's striking as well, because we've seen that over the years come on in leaps and bounds as well, that he can hold his own and finish people. I thought Dustin looked really good. In round 2, there was I thought he was just doing really well with the clinch work as well. There was quite a lot of that, and I thought he was sort of really holding his own. And I've got notes here that in both rounds 3 and 4, Dustin's body shots were just like really, really good. I'm trying to pick out the highlights for me that I saw in Dustin, because I think, if you look at the sort of consensus of fight fans' opinions leading into this, most people thought that maybe he was going to get submitted quite early. And I thought his takedown defence looked pretty decent.
Better than we've ever seen it before. And having said that, he was still taken down like first round for quite a large period of time, to the point where I thought there was a case for a 10-8 in the first round. Not because of damage, but because of domination and duration. It was so, I mean, maybe there was more damage needed to make it a 10-8, but I think there's maybe an argument to be had that a 10-8 could have been scored in that first round.
Yeah.
He really struggled with those bits, as we knew he would. But then as the fight went on, he seemed to be able to defend the takedowns better, particularly in the open. Up against the fence, struggled a little bit more, but in the open, really was able to defend the takedowns well, up until that incredible moment in round 5 where Islam did a takedown I don't think I've ever really even seen before, where he just had his leg and spun Dustin around, timed it when Dustin was about to throw a punch. It was absolutely incredible, and you heard DC talking about it afterwards.
It was Liam Harrison's style. That's what Liam Harrison does. Catches the foot and literally spins you. Yeah.
Well, that's... DC was saying that kind of level of wrestling, you don't see that much in MMA. Very rare you see that level in MMA. You don't need to. And Dustin did so well, obviously, making Islam work really hard. But Islam there's levels, and Islam was able to grab that leg and time that throw so that he could get on top of Dustin. And then, obviously, got the Darce choke, which Dustin admitted did put him out. It looked like it did as well. He tapped, but then very quickly after the tap was unconscious and his head kind of went down. Obviously, he's fine afterwards. But yeah, it was really special from Islam. I think the narrative, because we all love Dustin Poirier, because the fans love Dustin Poirier, the narrative, I think, is going to be, didn't Dustin do well? What's next for Dustin? Is he going to retire? God, don't we love Dustin? Isn't he a warrior? All this stuff. And I think rightfully so in some ways. That does make sense, because we all love Dustin. But equally, I think we can't get lost in that narrative and not go, Jesus, Islam is so good. He's just so good. And this was a day where maybe he didn't have his best day. Or maybe Dustin really was a real match for him, and people are going to be coming away going, I felt like Islam looked beatable in that fight. I don't know, man. He looks so good everywhere. He's got levels. He's got toughness. He got cut, and he still was fighting. And there was talk in the before the fight about potential staph infection that he'd been struggling with. So did he have the best camp? I don't know. So yeah, I think we have to just tip our hats to Islam Makhachev as well and say this guy is on a really good run and is a phenomenal fighter. And now tied longest lightweight championship win streak defenses, whatever it is, like three title defenses is basically what I'm saying. Granted, 2 of those were against Volk, a featherweight. One of them, a really, really tough, brilliant fight. The other one, Volk was on 12 days' notice. And now Poirier, who you could argue didn't deserve the title shot because he was only head kicked by Gaethje a little while ago. So there's certainly moments where if you were to compare, say, Khabib's title defences to Makhachev's title defences, I think you could say Khabib definitely edges it. He fought, I know a Conor McGregor that had come back from a time off, but that Conor McGregor was way better than the Conor McGregor we see now. He fought with Dustin and beat him very convincingly, and Justin Gaethje and beat him very convincingly. Yeah. So I think those stack up as better than beating Volk twice, particularly on 12 days' notice, and Dustin Poirier. I think they do. Maybe, I mean, look, yeah, I think so. Particularly the 12 days' notice, because obviously Volk we rate so highly. But I don't know. What do you think? If you compare Khabib's 3 title wins, Conor, Dustin, Justin, to Makhachev's Volk, and Dustin, how do they compare for you?
I think the first Volk fight wasn't a dominate. It wasn't a dominating performance from Islam. Volk looked great. Second
but
one,
he did beat one of the pound for pound guys on the planet.
True.
He won. He won.
Yeah. Look, I think it's important that we're putting this respect on Makhachev because I'm looking at the rankings now. I don't think there's a big threat in there. Amr Sarukian, I think is the fight that I don't think is going to be the big money spinner, but I think it could be one of the most interesting fights on that card. The only other fight in that, Sarukian lost to Gamrot, right?
In a split decision, I think that I actually scored that for Sarukian. I don't think he lost that fight.
Okay. And so just looking at that, obviously you got Max in there. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen in any way, shape, or form. I think I'd love to have seen Makhachev fight Benil Dariush maybe 3 years ago. As he was coming through, I think that would have been a really interesting fight. I don't think Dariush we're seeing now is the same fighter that we was looking at 3 years ago. So I don't know. Is he going to go up? What as I've not seen the post fight. Has he mentioned what's next for him?
He mentioned going up. He's got 3 title defenses now, so by my own rules, I should be okay with it, but I'm not. Because I think there's plenty going on at welterweight. We don't need him to step up. Leon's fighting Bilal, and then he should be probably fighting Shavkat. And then there's MVP Ian Gary as well. That fight's being made, and the winner of that could be looking at a title shot. So I think there's plenty going on for Leon Edwards and for the welterweight title picture. I don't think we need Islam going up there and ruining that and messing that up, because I think Shavkat is the guy in waiting. We need to see him. Is he as good as everyone thinks he is? The storylines between a potential Leon and Ian Gary fight sort of write themselves with the problems they've had in the gym before. MVP versus Leon, an all English, British, whatever you want to call it, war. That could be great as well. Birmingham versus London. That's got a real storyline to it. Jack Della Maddalena called out Shavkat. Maybe they fight first.
He's out for a while. He's out for a while.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, then it's probably unless Shavkat's like, I need to fight someone. Maybe you give him a Sean Brady or someone like that. I don't know, just to keep him happy. But I don't need Islam Makhachev moving up.
So you want a Sarukian fight?
I really do. I've wanted that fight for a really, really long time. That's the fight that should have happened. But because obviously Sarukian and Oliveira were booked only a little while ago, they asked Sarukian, do you want to fight Islam? And he said, no, it's too short notice, which is understandable. So now we'll probably have to wait till most likely October, Abu Dhabi, something like that, because that's when Islam usually fights. So yeah, I really want to see that fight. I definitely want to see that fight before Islam thinks about moving up. I think it'd be a real shame if we don't get that fight. If Islam moves up to fight probably Leon, because I expect Leon to fight to beat Bilal. It'd be really interesting if Bilal wins, because Bilal's been training with Khabib and Islam and all those guys. So certainly would be interesting if Bilal won. If Islam was like, no, I want to fight you. I want that 2 times. I think it's all kind of coming from like Islam. I think really wants that second belt so that he can truly step out of Khabib's shadow. I think Khabib had a great run at lightweight. Islam's not undefeated. He did get knocked out. Was it his UFC debut or something like that? So he's not holding on to that undefeated win streak that Khabib had. They're tied for title defences now, Khabib and Islam. And as we've mentioned, maybe you could be more favourable to Khabib's title defences over Islam's. And so is he just trying to go, let me do what Khabib didn't do and let me step up in weight and win a second belt? I actually think I'd be more impressed with him if he had a longer stretch of title defenses. Like if he went and beat Arman Sarukian, and then he went, who's next? Oh, it's Mateus Gamrot, and then beats him, and maybe one more for Zeev if he comes back. Like any of those things at lightweight, or Charles Oliveira again if it has to be, something like that. Then I'd be way more impressed with him than if he went up in weight and beat Leon Edwards. Because even, I think Islam sort of alluded to it, that finding the motivation to constantly defend the belt, be the champion, be the hunter, be the hunted, not the hunter, is really, really difficult in terms of your mindset in preparing for these fights and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, and that's why you have to put so much respect on the names of John Jones, as much as, you know, the issues with John Jones from a kind of personal standpoint and all that stuff, but what he did defending that light heavyweight belt so often, and Demetrius Johnson as well, to defend so successfully and consistently, and keep motivating yourself to just beat these contenders who are after you, giving you their best every single time, and they've had years and years and years of seeing you be the champ, and they've been training for you for such a long time. That is really commendable, and probably more so than just popping up in weight and winning that second belt. So I'd definitely like to see Islam stay where he is, at the very least, for just a Sarukian fight, if not further.
So is Dustin Poirier going to stay where he is, or are we going to see him walk away from the octagon? He was a little sketchy with what he was saying. It felt to me that the footage that I saw, I don't know if he said more post-fight in the presser, but he was sort of alluding to, like, you know, do I need this anymore? I mean, I don't see him getting a title shot anytime soon. Like it's going to be a bit of a long way back. There's some big money fun fights out there. I mean, look, we've got Conor Chandler coming up, and I think Chandler's going to win that fight, and that'll leave Conor, you know, with another loss on his resume. Is there a world where we see Conor fight Dustin again? I don't know. Would that be a big money fight?
I think if Conor wins, it would make more sense, but I don't think it would be the next fight, because if Conor wins, he's either fighting Leon for the welterweight belt, which again, like, doesn't deserve to, but that's just the way things will go, or he's probably going to fight Max or someone else for the BMF belt. That's what will probably happen. So I don't see Dustin fighting Conor maybe ever again, but definitely not if Conor loses. So I think if Conor wins, he then fights someone else, and then maybe he fights Dustin for that fourth fight, depending on how well he's looked and all those things, because Dustin is a star. I don't necessarily think we've seen the last of Dustin Poirier. He's had a real urge to fight Nate Diaz for years, and if the UFC can re-sign Nate Diaz, then that is a possibility. I think he's 35 or something years old. I don't think we'll see him go and do what he did against Benoit Saint-Denis and make like another run at the belt and try and fight an up-and-coming guy. I think he's like, what would be a huge fight that would earn me loads of money? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Dustin Poirier for 18 months or more, and then he's back for some huge fight. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, if Tony Ferguson gets a win, which we can talk about that stuff maybe on another episode. Nick Diaz coming back and Tony Ferguson coming back.
We're looking at doing another episode this week on that, aren't we?
Potentially,
yeah. There's been a lot of very odd announcements this week. Okay. Well, look, should we move on to Strickland and Costa?
Yeah, let's move on to Strickland and Costa. I don't think there's much more to say about it, other than just saying how much we love Dustin.
Yeah, man.
And it is great. And go home, be with your family, take as much time as you need. I do think we might see him again.
Yeah.
But if we don't, fantastic career, and arguably, if not then one of the greatest fighters to ever not be undisputed champion.
Yeah. Never in a boring fight.
No. He always brings it fan-friendly, and he seems like a great guy. Like, does stuff for the charities and all that stuff. Like, great guy. Let's move on to Strickland Costa. Was a bit boring, really.
Yeah.
It wasn't the most exciting fight in the world. I was surprised at Paulo Costa's tactics. I never thought of Paulo Costa as the sort of like run around on the back foot and circle around the cage and try and pop in the strikes and all that stuff. I felt like, and I also think that was just always going to be a terrible game plan for Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland does really well just marching forward with that Philly shell, teep kicking to the body, lifting that front leg all the time, and fighting that awkward style. And I feel like the people that have had the most success have been ones that have sort of met him. Because I think we all know by now, Strickland doesn't hit that hard for an elite level fighter. He doesn't have that many knockouts on his resume or anything like that. So if he's pushing you backwards, he does well. If you meet him in the middle, a la obviously Pereira, but even Dricus du Plessis did it, Jared Cannonier as did it, you can have a lot of success.
He's very good at walking you down. I mean, you know, I'm surprised that Costa didn't watch, and Costa's team didn't watch the easy fight, because now when you think, look what he done to Israel Adesanya, like walked him down and chased him around that octagon, and it didn't end well. And I think Costa's a much more powerful striker than Strickland. I think he should have just kind of bit down on the gum shield and pressed forward, and he played into Strickland's strengths, which was, yeah, like you say, a little bit odd. I didn't think it was very exciting to watch.
No.
And by then, I was reading some sort of reviews and stuff of the event on whole. It felt like people were just running out of steam, and just like with the event, it seemed like it was. I was looking through all the results, and there's lots of decisions on the card. It didn't seem like there was lots of fireworks on the card in general.
No, there wasn't many fireworks on the card. I thought the main event did well, and given the high stakes and the emotional attachment to Dustin, the main event pretty much delivered. But yeah, this did not go the way I think people wanted, and it's really interesting because I think at times there was even some slight boos in the crowd, and I know that like Sean Strickland is, for whatever reason, I don't understand it, but seems to be beloved by a lot of fans. I think even they were probably like, this wasn't great. And I do feel like these performances won't ingratiate you with the fans. Maybe he'll have to come out and say more crazy stuff to try and keep them on board. But these performances aren't what people like. He did at least come out in the post-fight press conference and say, yeah, that was boring. I'm sorry. I didn't expect Costa to fight like that. And I think he has a point. Like, he was at least coming forward the entire time, and Costa was, I don't want to say running, but he had a game plan where he was kind of trying to avoid a lot. Rather than, I think, which I agree with you, I think what would have been a better game plan is bite down on the mouthpiece. You hit harder than Strickland. You do. Most people do. So to just go to war with him, I think would have been a much better game plan. But yeah, because I mean, the only thing that Strickland did that really hurt him, there was the head kick late on or whatever, but I think a lot of the knockdowns were more he was off balance, if I'm honest. And then by the end, he was quite tired. But the thing that seemed to do the most damage was when Costa threw a low kick and Strickland checked it. And Costa was then sort of visibly limping around for a while after that. And so, yeah, I think that was the most proper damaging, impactful moment until maybe the head kick in, what was it, the fifth round. And then Strickland really put it on him for the last, few seconds of the fight. But it wasn't a great fight. And because of that, do you know what? We're going to get on to the kind of because of that and what that means for the middleweight division going forward. But before we do, did you see that it was a split decision and that Costa, I think, got a 49-46 on someone's card? What did you make of that?
There's been a lot of a lot of discussion around that. I've no idea. Like that, I hadn't heard of that judge's name. I did read it this morning. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where that come from. And I think Dana, I've not seen the post fight, but I did read that he was talking about that. How ridiculous that scorecard was. Like, it shouldn't be happening at that level of the sport. People should be more switched on to how you score a fight. because that's piss poor. Like, well did that happen, So
I do think it was a bad scorecard, but having said that, I do think Strickland, in some ways, maybe I'm being harsh here. People are going to think I'm being harsh, but Strickland's style of fighting does invite potentially dodgy decisions because he is quite defensive in the way that he goes forward. And it does seem like if you're willing to just strike with him a little bit, knowing that the likelihood is you have more power than him, you'll probably win the fight.
Yeah.
And I think Strickland doesn't kind of go for broke or really like throw hard. And I mean, look, again, armchair coaching or analysing I'm doing right now. I've never been in a fight. It's very easy for me to say all this stuff. But I do think that there's been a few dodgy kind of decisions around Strickland. And I think after a while you have to go, well, your fight style does tend to lead to these kinds of moments maybe. And you're not a finisher. You're not really going for it a lot of the time. You are defensively incredibly sound with a lot of what you do. And if someone just stands their ground, doesn't get backed up and swings with him and connects, they'll win, because even if Strickland connects 3 times, if you connect once, you've got that bit more power than him. It will look more impactful and you'll win the fight. So I can see why there's moments in the fight where you go, oh, well, Strickland's landed 4, but Costa's landed 1, and his 1 was a lot heavier. So how are we kind of scoring that and balancing it out? I don't know. But having said that, I do think it was a bad scorecard, and I do think Strickland was the rightful winner of the fight. He says he wants the belt next. He also had a moment with Donald Trump where he said that the Donald Trump court case was a, quote, travesty, which is just absolutely ridiculous when he's been tried in a court of law with 12 judges. This isn't not 12 judges, sorry, 12 jury members. So this isn't like, oh, well, it was one of Biden's judges. By the way, Donald Trump himself changed the Supreme Court to make it way more Republican, put his own people in there. So he's already stacking the deck in his favour when it comes to things like the Supreme Court and the justice system and stuff like that. However, this was tried by a jury, 12 jury members. And he's been found guilty on, I think, 34 counts of fiddling his business finances. And at least one of those counts is to do with the fact that he paid $130,000 or whatever to Stormy Daniels whilst he was in an election campaign for the election that, I believe, the one that he won, and gave her hush money and then covered it as a business expense.
Yeah.
So that's where it is. And he's been found guilty by 12 jury members. It's not a travesty. And all these fighters trying to say that. And then Dana White in the press conference afterwards, who also, by the way, even if you like Trump, whatever, you do you. But I tell you what, I think is maybe a step even further, and I think maybe makes you go, hang on a minute, that's not all right, is Dana White was asked about potentially doing a card in Russia, and would he invite Putin? And he said, yeah. You're like, Putin's just illegally invaded a country and caused hundreds, if not thousands, of deaths in terms of Ukrainians and his own people. His own people have died as well, obviously, fighting this war. We've had people like Alexander Usyk and Yaroslav Amosov and people like that, fighters in the sport that you know, obviously Usyk boxing, but fighters who we admire.
Lomachenko, Klitschko.
Klitschko, all of those people going back to fight a war against this man's Russia. And you've got Dana White saying, yeah, bring Putin down. It'd be great. We'll have a right laugh. And what? What are you doing? Like, I don't know. To me, it just gives the sport such a bad look. Such a bad look, and I'm not here for it.
I'm not here for it. You know, this ain't a political podcast. You know, this is about us being armchair fans, loving the sport. But there are elements of the sport that you do have to discuss. And the fact that, you know, they love that little bit of VT of Dana walking into the octagon with Donald Trump. And it's just, I don't know, it feels like a little bit of a dick swing. It's like, look how powerful my friends are. And to then entertain the concept of having Putin at an event, it's just, I don't know. I don't like that element of the sport. I think it's a bit sad. I don't understand this American, you know, a big element of the American public loving Donald Trump. I mean, you know, been looking at what's been happening lately, and you know, I agree with you. It's not cool, man. And to then have him being sort of paraded and all of these fighters, you know, showing their absolute devotion to him, it's a crazy, crazy world, and America's a crazy, crazy place at times. And it's not my bag. I just make that clear. I do not subscribe to that, and I just wish that sport wouldn't have such open political leanings. I think it should be something for fans to enjoy, an unbiased thing, and parading somebody like that cage side. I don't think we need it in sport.
No.
But it doesn't look like it's going anywhere soon. If anywhere, it looks like it's going to Russia. Fucking hell.
No, it sounds like, again, from the
Putin.
press conference, Trump and Dana White have been friends since the early 2000s. Trump's done a lot for the UFC in its early kind of, well, after the Fertitta brothers and Dana White took over the sport. Trump was very helpful with helping them putting on events and all this stuff at his hotels and stuff like that. So I can understand if someone's done you a favour, you want to be loyal to them, all that stuff, great. But this guy is now a convicted felon, and it happened like the day of or the day before or something like that. The guilty verdict came out. I don't know. I mean, but again, by November, this man may yet again be president of the United States of America. So who knows what the future holds. But as I say, I don't like it. I think it's a terrible look for the sport. But maybe that's just me. Moving on to more about Strickland, though. Where do you think this puts him in terms of... He's won the fight against Costa. We spoke about this kind of almost middleweight tournament going on between now the winner in Strickland and the fight that's yet to happen between Khamzat Chimaev and Robert Whittaker. Is Strickland the front runner for that title shot against DDP or Israel Adesanya, however that works out? Is Strickland the front runner now, regardless of what happens with Khamzat and Rob Whittaker? Or what could Khamzat or Rob Whittaker do in, I think, Saudi Arabia in a few weeks? What can they do to surpass Sean Strickland and be the next guy up?
I don't think Bobby Knuckles can do anything.
Really?
I think even if he starches Khamzat in like 20 seconds, I think the Bobby Knuckles Drickus fight, he's still quite fresh in people's minds. I think there'd unfortunately have to be another fight or something else to happen to make that move that quick for Robert Whittaker. If Khamzat goes in there and does something ridiculous and gets a first round stoppage, in a devastating style, picks him up, throws him out onto the, on top of Dana White whilst telling Dana White he's whatever. Do you know what I mean? Then I think there's a world where he fast tracks it, because it's so hit and miss with Chimaev as to what he just seems to not fight. And I think if we can get him on a roll, we know he's a fantastic fighter, and I think let's just try and get him that shot. And there's been so much talk of it. I don't know. I think a lot of it comes down to what Izzy's up to. There's been very little kind of word from... I mean, the Izzy Drickus fight, I think, is really marketable. I think that there's a lot of African based discussions between them two that's created unhappiness, and I think it's a grudge match there, and I think the UFC will fan the flames of that. I'm interested in that fight. Do I want to watch Strickland versus Dricus again. I mean, it was a pretty close fight, I thought, last time. I'm in no rush to see that fight. I would like to see Israel Adesanya fight Dricus next. And Sean Strickland, I don't know. I don't care. Just don't care. I just don't like him. It was crazy to see him beat Izzy. His fight style's very odd, clearly effective, but just not into him. But he's number one there, so he's knocking on the door, and there is, a big reason why he should be fighting next for that belt. What do you think?
Well, I think they will make. Excuse me. I think they will make Dricus versus Izzy. I think I've just looked up that the Perth card is going to be UFC 305, and it's happening in mid-August. So that leaves 2.5 months between now and then. And I think the likelihood is it's going to be Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis. So Strickland's got to win. He's maybe next up, but we've got Khamzat versus Rob Whittaker in June. I think, as you said, I can't see Rob really jumping over Strickland to fight the winner of DDP versus Izzy, because he's lost to both Izzy and DDP.
Yeah.
But if Khamzat wins, I think he definitely can leap over Strickland, especially if he does it in impressive fashion. I think that it could be interesting to see. Strickland likes to be active. He's not someone that likes to sit around for too long. He likes to be very active. And I think it could make sense if there's a quick finish in the Khamzat-Rob Whittaker fight, whichever way it goes. You could do Strickland versus the winner of that fight, not necessarily on the Perth card, although maybe on the Perth card, but not necessarily on it, but around it, like maybe September. Do it at the Sphere, do something like that. And then the timings really work out to then do the winner of Adesanya DDP versus the winner of Strickland versus, Rob or Khamzat.
Yeah.
Come kind of December, January time. That could work really, really well. And as I say, Strickland likes to be active. So let's see if there's a quick finish from Khamzat or a quick finish from Rob. I think if it's Khamzat, I think they're just going to give him the shot. Khamzat doesn't fight very often lately. You just give him the shot. I think that if it's Rob, though, I think it makes a lot of sense to go, well, let's do Rob versus Strickland and see, especially if Strickland wants to be active. But the smart thing for Strickland to do would be to wait, if he can avoid being active and wait, because I think he's above Rob Whittaker in the kind of pecking order. So I think he would, regardless of who won out of Dricus and Izzy, Strickland would be the next guy up, I think.
Okay. Am I reading this right? Armbar finish Kevin Holland.
Yeah, man. Holland's grappling's really underrated. We saw that with Chiesa and all these other things, but this fight went how it was supposed to go. You were looking at the card and going, could be a lot of decisions on here. What do we do to get us to the co-main event as quick as possible? Oleg Zajic versus Holland makes perfect sense. Because Oleg Zajic is someone that either finishes or gets finished very early in fights.
Yeah.
Holland is very durable, can put on very exciting fights, but yeah, the grappling for Holland is underrated. We have seen it before, and I think people shouldn't be getting too surprised by it anymore. But I think it was a big, left hook or left shot from Oleg Zajic that put Holland down. And then he followed Holland to the ground and made a huge mistake by just leaving his arm in a position where Holland could just lock it up. I mean, credit to Oleg Zajic, he didn't tap, but my son had come downstairs at this point really early in the morning and joined me watching this fight. And I was covering his eyes because I thought, he's going to snap his arm. He's going to snap his arm.
He did not want to tap, did he?
He didn't, and credit to him for that. And he seemed disappointed with Herb Dean for stopping the fight. But I mean, I'm sure that was probably the right decision. I mean, 10 years ago, would that fight have been stopped? Maybe not. Maybe that would have carried on. And we've seen people fighting with busted arms and stuff before. But because his arm didn't look like it was flopping around like Jamal Hill's or like
it was bent the wrong way. It was
better on it. But when he stood, he seemed not too bad with it afterwards. I reckon it was what probably be his worst. Maybe it wasn't the bone. Maybe it was more ligaments and tendons and stuff.
That's going to be sore today, I'm sure.
Oh, it's going to be sore for a while, yeah. But I think it was the right call from Herb Dean to stop the fight, and good work from Kevin Holland to get the finish. Yeah,
I mean, we did also see a finish from Jayton Almeida. He got it done in the first round, rear naked choke, right?
Yep, he got him down really, really early, Jayton Almeida. First round rear naked choke. He's taking the big boys down, and he's doing bits. I mean, I was saying for a long time he's too small for the division. When he comes up against people that can grapple well, that are bigger and heavier than him, he's going to struggle. But he seems to be balancing a lot of that out with his athleticism and his strength. So I know he got beat by Curtis Blades, but it was still surprising to see how he was able to grapple with Curtis Blades and do well up until he got knocked out. I still think he can't beat the likes of Tom Aspinall and obviously Curtis Blades or John Jones or people like that. Yeah. But he says he wants to fight in France. That can only mean one thing. It can only mean Cyril Gane. And that's a fight I'm interested in. Has Gane improved enough to keep people off of him and not get taken down and destroyed? Can Almeida take and keep down someone with the movement and athleticism of Cyril Gane? This is a really good fight, in my opinion. And I think making that fight, one of them comes out and you go, oh, okay, interesting. And if Almeida's able to take Gane down, which I think he maybe could, and submit him early and damage him early.
Big win for him.
It'd be a huge win for him. And then he's back in, he's there as a contender, and Gane really slips down the list. And what it maybe does it lessen the case for John Jones being as great as everyone says he is, in terms of what we saw in the post-fight press conference was Dana White saying, really kind of dismissing Islam Makhachev as the pound-for-pound number one and saying, no, it's John Jones. No matter what you say, it's John Jones. And I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, obviously, there's issues with John Jones and his kind of the asterisks with PEDs and all that kind of stuff, personal issues as well. But in terms of his performances in the cage, you can't doubt him as a light heavyweight, greatest light heavyweight of all time, bar none. Arguably the greatest fighter, regardless of whether he moved up or not. But his only win at heavyweight is Cyril Gane. And Cyril Gane at one stage, a lot of us were saying was the future of the heavyweight division. Great. But we've seen the holes in his game on the ground. Francis Ngannou exploited the holes in his game on the ground. And you don't really think of Francis Ngannou as the greatest wrestler of all time. So for John Jones to come and do it wasn't overly surprising in hindsight. And if Almeida does it and was able to take Gane down, what does that say about it? I don't know. I just this whole thing about John Jones being the pound for pound best guy in the world right now, I don't know. Islam Makhachev seems like he's got a real case. I don't know. What do you think? If someone said to you pound for pound best on the planet right now, John Jones or Islam Makhachev, what do you say?
Right now, Islam Makhachev.
Yeah.
But in the history of the sport, John Jones.
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We're not talking about greatest fighter of all time. That's not the conversation we're having. We're having who is the pound for pound best fighter on the planet right now.
Yeah.
A guy that did very well at light heavyweight, although towards the end of his career, you could say got beat by Dominic Reyes, had iffy fights against the likes of Thiago Santos, who's like a middleweight, stuff like that. Then took years off. You could argue avoided Francis Ngannou. And then waited and then beat Cyril Gane up at heavyweight.
Yeah.
Or Islam Makhachev, who's been just taking people out left, right, and centre for the whole of his lightweight run, bar that one moment in his, I think it was his UFC debut.
Totally agree.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a conversation to be had. And look, if you are listening to this, rolling your eyes and saying it's obviously John Jones, fair enough. I'm not knocking you for saying it's John Jones. I just think the definitive nature in which Dana White was almost dismissive of Islam's case, I don't know, just I didn't think was correct. I feel like there is a conversation to be had.
Yeah, somebody's shining right now, and it's Makhachev, and Dana should put some respect on that, I think.
Yeah,
and not bang on about somebody that just doesn't seem to want to fight. And
well, he does. He just wants to fight 40-odd-year-old retired
exactly.
firefighters.
You know,
I think
Cyril
got knocked
Gane
out in their last fight. Like, again, if he was up for fighting Tom Aspinall, I'd be like, he's showing that championship mentality, blah, blah, blah. He's really not interested in fighting Tom Aspinall,
and look,
the interim heavyweight champ. He wants to fight Stipe, who, again, I just don't know any... maybe you're a fan that's like, I've got to see that fight. I've got to see that fight. I'm like, no, I have zero interest in that fight. I'm not interested in it at all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just think he's a fighter now that's just picking his fights. I think he chose well in Cyril Gane. I think he knew that, you know, that was a very easy fight for him, you know, fight style wise. He knew that he could get to him and rag him about a bit. And I think he, you know, as much as he'll say otherwise, I think he will look at fighters like Curtis Blades and Tom Aspinall and just think they're problems, because they're really well-rounded fighters. They can knock people out with fantastic, like, Tom's boxing's phenomenal. Groundwork on both of them fighters, fantastic. And John Jones, he's Father Time's catching up with him. And, yeah, I don't know. I just think we've not seen anything from John Jones in the last God knows how many years to go, yeah, he's pound for pound currently best fighter on the planet. He's not. You know, look at what Islam Makhachev's done. Look at Volk. Do you know what I mean? Even Volk, you know, obviously last sort of few outings take that, you know. But as we discussed at the very beginning of this, put in a fantastic performance in the first fight, and the second fight took it on 12 days' notice. You know, there's a lot to be said that we were having these conversations about Volk about a year ago, that, you know, is he pound for pound the greatest? And, you know, again, there's parts of this industry that I don't like, and the stuff that we know about John Jones outside of the octagon, I'm just not into it. It's just it's a dark side of the sport. But as you said, inside the octagon, he's, you know, over the years, ridiculous. When he was on a tear, you know, it was spectacular. But yeah. Well, look, we can discuss this at length when we finally get some kind of notification as to what is next for John Jones, whether it is that Stipe fight or whether...
It is the Stipe fight. It's good. It's good. Dana wants it. John Jones wants it. Stipe wants it. They're the only people that want it, but that's what's going to happen.
There's 3 accountants that want that fight because it's an easy payday for everyone, isn't it? All right. Well, look, I mean...
Any other fights you want to... talk. I mean, again, there wasn't much. I can run through briefly. Alex Morono, Nico Price wasn't the most exciting. Morono looked quite tired, and the fight got quite scrappy, and Price won that. Randy Brown, I thought won rounds 1 and 3, and I think the judges agreed with me against Zaleski dos Santos. Ref was a bit weird with an eye poke situation there. Zaleski was eye poked, and the ref just told him to get on with it, or called time and then told him he has to then fight again, didn't give him the time to recover. And even Jason Herzog, between rounds, stepped in and had a chat with that ref, according to the commentators, to say, you can't just tell him to fight again, he's got 5 minutes to recover. So the fact that there was a ref in there that didn't adhere to that, or I don't know, didn't know the rules or whatever. It was a very, very strange situation in that fight with the eye poke. Randy Brown called out Jeff Neal. I don't know if Jeff's got a fight booked or not, but I think that's possibly a really fun fight.
Yeah.
Kopilov, Almeida coming from his kickboxing background, but struggled with it being an MMA fight. And Kopilov changed tact and did what he normally is, what is the medicine for dealing with him by taking him down, and he used that against Almeida. So clearly trying to show that he's a well-rounded mixed martial artist, and did enough, and did well on the feet at points as well, Kopilov. So he won. Again, a split decision, but I don't know if it should have been split. Grant Dawson got a win against Joe Selecki. Not exciting, quite dull. Top pressure, ground and pound, all that stuff, but Grant Dawson got back in the win column, which he needed. And then some people slagging off the Phil Rowe, Jake Matthews fight, which I thought was really exciting for the first 2 rounds. Good fight, back and forth. Third round, bit more boring. Jake Matthews just kind of took him down and stayed on him. And Matthews won by unanimous decision, but a good win for him. And that is basically the whole card. As I said, it was not the most exciting card in the world.
All right. Well, look, thanks ever so much if you're watching this for bearing with it. And my dodgy Zoom background, recording this live from my garage. We promise you the next one we'll be back in the studio and it'll be all whistles and bells again for you. And when we're in that studio, obviously we can flash up on the screen our sponsors, Ferocious Fightwear and Fat Candy. Head over to them, give them a follow on the socials, and the discount code once again for Ferocious Fightwear is MMA Fan Show 15, and for Fat Candy it's Sweet MMA. Right, we're done.
We'll try and get a little news episode to you where we talk about the Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia cards that have been kind of announced. A lot of people saying that there's maybe a little bit of competitive rivalry between the two cards, trying to get the best cards out there. And what we all make of the Tony Ferguson versus Chiesa and Nick Diaz versus Vicente Luque fights. If you can see our faces, they are a little bit pained saying that. We're not sure if that's the right thing, but we'll talk all about it in a news episode coming your way, hopefully this week.
Absolutely. All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye.